And we're live. So, good evening. It's Lynne Franks here. This is Lynne Franks in conversation with extraordinary women. And I am thrilled tonight to have one of my extraordinary women friends here, the beautiful Hattie Webb, singer, songwriter, harpist, and all round pretty awesome woman. And we're going to be talking through a lot of your journey as an artist, as a woman in the rock and roll business tonight, and talking about your new work, which I'm so really thrilled about because you're going to be singing live some songs as well as showing videos. So how are you? You've literally landed back from lockdown in Italy yesterday night or tonight, this morning, haven't you?
Last night, yeah. Well, technically this morning, but yeah, I got home yesterday evening. It was a trip coming through a deserted airport.
Yeah.
Very bizarre.
How long have you been in Italy?
5 months.
So yeah, so welcome back.
It's lovely to be back, actually.
Yeah.
Missed it.
Well, we missed you, but I didn't feel that you were far away. That's the wonder of everything, isn't it? Now that we're online all the time, we could be around the corner. And I was watching different posts that you were doing from Italy. I mean, you did some amazing things there. Was your partner, Andrea, beautiful Andrea, who the double, what is it? A double bass? No, it's the big one.
Double bass.
There you go.
Yeah.
Should know it because you and Andrea played here at the Seed Hub just over a year. Well, obviously pre-lockdown, just over a year ago. To the most wonderful evening ever here that people are still talking about, where we had a full crowd in the Sea Cafe and the music was just incredible. And I know that you and Andrea have been playing with other musicians where you've all been in different locations and recording together from different places all over Europe, haven't you?
Yes, that's right. With a new software called Aloha by Elk, and you can be up to 2,000 miles away. You can record and play at the same time. So there's no latency. When you have a slight delay, it makes it really difficult to play together. But we were able to play at the same time.
It's beautiful.
Yeah, we had such a great time at the Sea Cafe and staying with you. It's such a beautiful space and wonderful bed. That bed, so comfortable.
Our eco bed, yeah, it was wonderful. And then you came back again with Andrea's full group that he plays. I mean, how would you describe the music they do before we talk about the music you do? Because that was an experience and a half.
They're called Alfabeto Unico, and there are two guys who play double bass and one woman who plays violin, viola, and sings. It's very dramatic. It's orchestral, but it's a trio. And then they sing in harmony. They're absolutely incredible. So check them out.
Beautiful artists.
Alfabeto Unico.
Well, hopefully they'll be back here. But let's move on to you and your fantastic talent and your story and your journey. So I know we talked once because we were talking about my granddaughter and you who's singing now, and you were saying how you and both of you and Andrea actually had started music college at a very young age, and it's what you always wanted to do. Do you want to sort of talk through your whole life? Over to you. As an artist.
Yeah, I wanted to play the harp when I was 4. I think I must have heard it on the radio or heard it somewhere in the kitchen. Mum would have the radio on and Dad played a lot of vinyls, and I just really connected with the sound. I wasn't a girly girl, actually. I liked my trainers, my jeans, my cape, just the average normal stuff. And then I heard this instrument and I just loved it. And I felt it was a very dynamic, powerful instrument, not just gentle or feminine. And so I've just loved the whole journey playing the harp, learning with Danielle Perrett, and my journey with music.
Yes. Yeah. And your siblings are all musicians as well, which is pretty special.
Yeah, I'm in a band with my sister, Charlie, called the Webb Sisters. And Charlie's just such an incredible artist, musician, person, creator. So to collaborate from a young age with another powerhouse was brilliant, you know, because if you're working in collaboration, it makes you evolve. You can't stay in one place, which is challenging sometimes, but we all know as creators that you do need energy and you do need movement forward to not just stay in your comfort zone.
And so before you ever toured with Leonard Cohen, which we're going to talk about in a minute, you and Charlie were playing your own music that you'd written. She plays guitar when you're on harp, and the sound of you two together is truly magical as well. I remember when we first met in Mallorca, your dad, Graham, the extraordinary Graham Webb, sort of sent you to me to have a rest because you've been on tour with Leonard for almost 5 years then, and I've got that beautiful house in Mallorca. And then Charlie came as well, and the two of you played outside to me, actually. I think I was the audience.
Yeah,
and that was amazing.
We sang for our supper.
Wow, yeah, it was just fantastic. And how long ago was that? So that was, well, when you were still touring with Leonard, so 8 years ago?
2013, yes.
Yeah. And then we stayed in touch.
It was so nice because to come into your community after being trapped on the road for so long and moving about, come into your nook in Mallorca, it was really restorative, and to be swimming all together and not have to worry about clothes.
Yeah, so it was a very feminine, safe space, and we've talked about this before, and we're going to talk about it tonight. What it's like being a woman on the road in a rock and roll band, because over the years I've talked to a number of women artists, and I used to do PR for Annie Lennox, who was a friend who also lived in Mallorca at that point, and she used to say how she found it very difficult touring with lots of men, and I think for most women artists for many years it was very difficult. Depends, I guess, if you're the main line. I'm sure if Madonna's touring with her crew, she doesn't find any problems being a woman. And I suppose some of the artists today, like Lady Gaga or Taylor Swift or some of the others who are so powerful and earn such lots of money, can control it all. But I think, from what I gather from you and from other women artists, it's actually quite challenging being on the road, isn't it? Endlessly.
It's really challenging. It's incredible the community that you have on the road, because it does become like a family with the good sides and the challenging sides. And there are, of course, always wonderful men on the road, and there are also men who perhaps have ulterior motives. And when you're really focused, like I am, or my sister Charlie is, you really want to go out on that stage and do your best that you can possibly do, and give the right kind of support to Leonard, vocally, creatively, energetically. And that takes a lot of preparation, a lot of rituals, actually, preparing your voice, tuning up, warming up, and then also being in that psychic space that you're ready to create. It does take a lot. So when there are challenging dynamics on the road, for me, I found it quite difficult to manage. I didn't have the tools when I joined Leonard's band when I was 26 to look after myself as a woman. I think that that's something that does come 30 and beyond for a lot of people. There are lots of people who are very grounded and capable at younger ages, like your granddaughter, Lynne. But for me, I was a late developer, and I really had to cultivate that sense of ground, that sense of feminine strength. And it takes a lot of nurturing. For me, in my experience, I think you can be a very strong woman, and yet you're still vulnerable, because to be creativity, to be creative and be in that creative space takes vulnerability. So it's that dichotomy of how to be strong in the face of a tornado and yet be sensitive enough to connect with it.
Yes. And I know that Leonard was always very protective when you engaged him in what was going on. And of course, there were several occasions when you tried not, well, mostly you wouldn't try not to engage him into it, because he was carrying the energy for the whole tour. But when, of course, when he knew of anything going on, he would always immediately be very protective, and has always supported you as an artist in wonderful ways. And in fact, we can see peeking behind you the harp that he gave you, which you're going to be playing for us later, which I'm so excited about. And I've never met Leonard Cohen, but I have to say I am a huge fan, absolutely obsessive fan, and and felt when I went to see him with you and Charlie as his backing singers when you were on at the O2 in London that time, it was one of the last performances, wasn't it? I was just so proud of you, and Charlie, but also just so blown away by the whole experience. And I've got every record I've played a million times, and I'm a total group Leonard Cohen groupie. That's got nothing to do with what we're talking about tonight. And we are going to end on one of Leonard's songs, or the Leonard song, which is very exciting. But you've always been writing your own material throughout your whole Leonard Cohen, and of course, following the finish of the tour and Leonard's very sad passing, you then went on tour with Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, another absolute legend. Do you want to talk a little bit? Was that different being with them? Or I know that you stay close with his band and Leonard's band. Was that a different experience?
It was a very different experience. The music is rooted in such a different world, and that took quite a big adjustment. And when we first joined the band, when Tom asked us, Charlie and I, we were such big fans of his, as we were of Leonard's, but it was something that we'd always talked about. For example, his song Waiting for Tonight, this song was with the Bangles, and we'd always sung it when we were washing up or cooking together. We'd always sung the harmonies and loved it. So when we were asked to join, we got the email, it said from Tom Petty in the subject, and I thought it was someone.
You thought it was a joke. It's one of those classical.
Around with me, they knew what a big fan I was. I think that the biggest change was going from quite a quiet onstage band, where Leonard wanted to keep the sound levels really low, and he used to say, "We're the quietest rock and roll band in the world." But then moving from that to having stacks of speakers and amps behind you. I actually still have tinnitus from the
Really,
Tom Petty tour.
really,
Yeah, and
wow.
it's these things that you have to adjust to. They take time and experience. And something I've learned is you don't know until you know. So how to kind of forgive yourself that you get things wrong, and perhaps you do all the preparation you can, but there's always something unexpected. And that's when, as you very well know with your chanting practice, you have these grounding things to come back to. So you have something to fall back on versus feeling really exposed and unsafe almost in yourself. But have you ever had that experience?
No, I'm very lucky that I never have. I mean, well, maybe about my marriage, actually thinking about it, but apart from that, no. I've always been in a very sort of women's world, really, and I come from a long line of powerful women. And having said that, no, I haven't. At the same time, I'm more than aware of that feeling of unsafeness, how it is enormous. And when we had the terrible story the other day of that poor girl being murdered by the policeman, and generally the whole Me Too movement and that whole feeling of reclaiming our streets, because women are unsafe on the streets. The figures that came up from the UN, I can't remember exactly, but it was like over 90% of all women have been abused at some point. And
98.
98.
It was 17 to 24. Oh. It was that age bracket. But yeah, and 87% of homicides are women, not men.
Yeah.
So although no one wants to point the finger at men, we know there are great men in the world, but we do need to be aware that the statistics show us that women's lives are more in danger than men's lives.
Oh, they are. And if we start looking globally and we look at what's happening in Ethiopia right now and some of the other African countries, it's just where rape is just a day-to-day weapon of war, and the sexual abuse is just too horrible for words. I mean, there's so much we still have to do as women and men to stop this violence against women, for all women and girls to feel safe. And there's a lot of stuff in the papers this week about some of the schools in London and what's come up from them, this sort of bullying attitude to girls. And of course, social media has done such a lot on that level as well. There's a lot of work for us to do. And I know that you feel very, very committed to this and have become an ambassador for, I can't remember the name of the network that you're representing on this whole area of violence against women.
Yes, it's an organisation called AFTER, which is Advocacy After Fatal Domestic Abuse. And they provide a lot of support for families and individuals who are going through this and navigating this completely devastating experience. and it's an incredible charity, and I've been volunteering with them for about 4 years now. And it is a cause that's really close to my heart, not only as a woman, but also as a woman who struggled in industry and felt isolated, and also been through several different experiences that now I'm older, I can see that they are in the abuse and the violence and the harassment category. But when I was younger, I thought, oh, that's just part of
That's just how it is. Yes.
And your very good friend, Sue Lloyd Roberts, her book really changed the whole scene for me, because I wasn't aware of the situation for so many women worldwide, at how bad it was. Obviously, I've grown up in a very privileged situation, roof over my head, family, mum and dad, loving community, and yet I've struggled. So to think of women growing up in India or Pakistan who don't have that support network or that individual approach to their own education, I'm in such admiration of the work you do, Lynne, because you really have blazed the trail all your life for women, and particularly for women in industry, which is so important.
Yeah, well, women at the grassroots, thank you for that. I mean, women at the grassroots is what I'm very kind of connected and focused on as well. And that's women at the grassroots in every area of life and culture and country. And I've worked together with and under the guidance of the incredible Eve Ensler, now called V, who wrote Vagina Monologues, and I was involved with her for many, many years on the whole area of sexual violence against women and girls, and put on several events with other friends, took over Trafalgar Square, took over Marble Arch, just to create awareness and what particularly was going on at that time in the Congo, which is the same as Ethiopia. I mean, some of these African countries, it's so awful. And the fact is that these armies of drugged up, very young, disturbed men are actually being totally manipulated by mining companies. It all goes down to power, money, a lot of the minerals, diamond mines, coltan for our mobile phones. If you look all over Africa, all these so-called tribal and the world really fights are manipulated by a far more shadowy background. Anyway, we won't stay on that because we'll come back in a minute, because you've done a beautiful video of a song which we're going to be showing in a minute, which I can't wait for. But in the meantime, I'm going to ask you now to play this beautiful song live. That is the song from your new album, which you are going to be releasing in a month or so. It's a preview, a live exclusive preview here at CTV. Yay. And do you want to introduce it? And I know that you had some incredible men that worked with you on the record and helped you with it. So do you want to explain about this song?
Thank you, Lynne.
Thank you.
Yes, this is the title track. It's called Wild Medicine. I wrote it with an Australian artist called Paul Kelly in Melbourne, and Roscoe Beck, who was Leonard Cohen's musical director. He co-produced the song with me. And you're quite right, there are some incredible men in the music industry who are providing a place that they can support female artists, which is fantastic. This song is really about finding your own wild medicine wherever that may be. You know when you've had the right medicine because you feel better. It could be going on a trip, or it could be meeting a friend, or eating something that makes you feel good. And I think that that's something I'm learning, that if you can find your wild medicine in your life, then your life is in a state of growing and evolving. Yeah. This is my little harp, Harry. Come with me for a while, then let me take the path alone. moon, shine your spoon on me as I walk alone. On and on, till the dawn brings the sun to warm these bones. Oh, 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 I will go wherever it goes. Oh, 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 I will go wherever it goes. Wild medicine, wild medicine, wild medicine.
Beautiful, just beautiful. And I love the words wild medicine. And to me, it just says it all. I mean, there's lots of wonderful comments being put on StreamYard. Somebody was saying their wild medicine tonight after a long week is a glass of vino. There's lots of lovely comments coming in from very beautiful men, I have to say. You've got a lot of male supporters out there really enjoying what's going on. So wild medicine. So this is just, well, it's not just, this is the title of the album. But tell us a little bit more about the album. We're going to hear another song in a minute on video, which I just love. I've seen the video. It's so beautiful and moving. But tell us more about the album and what we can expect, and roughly when can we expect it? Not for a few weeks or so, I think you say.
Yes, I think it might be a couple more months, finding the right place for it to come out. And the album is centered around the voice and harp and acoustic classic Celtic instruments, but it's got more of a rock undertone. And I wrote 2 songs with Mike Campbell and Nina Baker, Mike from the Heartbreakers, and he's playing guitar on it. So it's really beautiful to hear the harp and the electric guitar weaving in together and creating that net. And then just working with several musicians who really inspire me and who provided a space where I could really explore moving out into more of a rock sound. It was an incredible experience recording mainly in Austin, Texas with Roscoe Beck, and then also in California with Ron Blair and Mike Campbell.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Amazing. Top musicians. So exciting.
Yeah.
Some lovely man here has said you're his wild medicine, Hattie.
Oh, really? Oh, dear.
Yeah, so
I'm not sure in the mornings if I'm anyone's wild medicine.
You've got a lot of fans here. Well, I'm hoping that you're going to come down as soon as we're allowed and be performing Wild Medicine in total at the Seed Hub Club here in Somerset. I cannot. I know I can't. I cannot wait. I cannot wait. It's such a privilege. So We also talked about the fact you've been doing a lot of interviews over the last few weeks, which is kind of funny because this is the first time you've been interviewed, and I actually have watched several of them, and you've been very gracious and been talking about the interviewee rather than your own work. But tell us about these interviews you've been doing on Instagram. They've been doing Instagram live interviews, haven't you?
That's right. Yeah, it was really focused around originally the work I'm doing with AFTA and wanting to change and contribute to changing the narrative, particularly for women in the music world and also in our wider communities. And that was one of the reasons why I wrote the song Never Just Your Daughters, who I wrote with Patrick Leonard, who co-produced Leonard's last 3 records and wrote them with him. And he also wrote Like a Prayer with Madonna. And he'd spoken a lot to me about his work with Madonna and how he supported and facilitated her musically and creatively, because she's such a powerful force. And I'd always been a big fan of his work. And so we decided to do some writing together, and we wrote several songs. 2 of them are on the album. And when we wrote this song, Never Just Your Daughters, it was just around the time of Me Too. And beginning to hear other women's stories, I felt my own story reflected in them, and I felt connected. And it's almost as if I had been not able to see for a period of time. And then as soon as I heard other women speak out bravely, I began to feel how connected we really are. So leading up to putting the video out for my song, Never Just Your Daughters, I thought I'd really love to connect with other female artists, hear about their journeys, their stories, what's challenged them, what enriches them, how do they find their path, and how do they navigate the challenges in this industry, and also balancing their family life, having children. As you very well know, it's a real challenge for many people, men and women. So I reached out to a few friends. I asked my sister, Charlie Webb, Marketa Erglever, and Beth Nielsen Chapman, Sarah Watkins, the Whitmore sisters, Sean Darling, and then also reached out to a couple of people I didn't know, one of them being Catherine Marks, who mixed the recent Alanis Morissette and produced, I should say, the new Alanis Morissette record in St. Vincent. And to have these conversations with Lucilla Alomar and Michelle Grimaldi, the Whitmore sisters, it really enabled me to have a different awareness of other people's journeys. And it was really a learning curve for me. And I'm so grateful that they contributed and took part, because I'm beginning to realize that the more conversations we have, not pointing a finger or blaming anyone, but connecting, going, how can we make this better for everyone? How can we dig deep? Then having these conversations is really what makes the difference.
It is exactly what makes the difference, which is why I'm having this conversation with you, and why I also agree with you that if we want to change the narrative, we must do it through connection and collaboration and communication, really. And of course, that's women and men together as well, although this particular space is just really highlighting the extraordinary women that I'm very fortunate to have in my life. I just come back to Sue Lloyd-Roberts' book, which you mentioned, which I have here in the seed store. And Sue Lloyd-Roberts, for those who don't know, passed away maybe 3 years ago now, 4 years ago, was a very dear friend who was top BBC reporter, who would not only go to the most dangerous places in the world, but she would actually be an activist for the horrors and human rights issues that she found there. She was the most extraordinary woman ever. And when she wasn't out there going in different war zones with forged passports and pretending she was a missionary or goodness knows what else, she'd be very ladylike running a hotel back in Mallorca with her husband Nick. I just wanted to really acknowledge Sue Lloyd-Roberts, because she's sadly missed, and she is an extraordinary woman. So thank you for bringing her up here. But that is what she believed, and that is what we all believe, is by connecting and communication. So have you got any more of those conversations still coming out on Instagram that we can just tell people about? Have you got more to come, or you've sort of finished the series
I might
now?
do. I'm still figuring out the next steps, but I'm also just carrying on having these conversations with my friends.
Mm.
And where I felt maybe a little bit insecure previously, to say to someone, I found this challenging. What do you do in this scenario? I'm starting to have more of those conversations, and
Yes.
saying, I want to navigate this situation. What do you think?
Yes.
And I'd love to ask you, Lynne, actually, I mean, when you started to be a woman in an industry that hasn't always been male dominated, there's a huge female presence, but to be an industry in such a powerful way, which you have been.
You mean the fashion or PR, or which industry? PR.
When you started out, did you purposefully build a team with women involved? Were you aware of that from when you started?
No. I mean, I was primarily in the fashion industry, and that was a very feminine industry to be in. And when I started my PR business in 1970, classically, the advertising agencies where all the money were run by men. And PR was such a new industry that they were like very dismissive of it, and they let the women get on with it. So that's how it sort of started. And PR is about communication and relationship building. And women, on the whole, do find that a lot easier than men.
Yeah.
And so even the male run agencies or male owned agencies were actually run by women. And you look at any PR agency, most of the people working there are women, because it's about relationships always. But I had some wonderful men working there. I'm at the moment getting together with lots of the people, particularly from the 80s, that worked with me at Lynne Franks PR, because we had such a hoot, we had such extraordinary times, and we've been getting together regularly on Zoom and remembering about them. And there's been some great guys as well there, really great guys. And everybody's got on to do amazing things. So I'm very proud of them. I'm like a real proud Jewish mama of all my Lynne Franks PR team. And so, yeah, we had guys, but mostly women, but some lovely men as well, of course. Beautiful. So
I love in your workshop room there, you have some pictures of your team.
Yeah, on the wall at the other end of the room.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, no, they're a great team. And I still think of them, because when a lot of them came to work for me, they were like 17, 18, 19 years old. And I'd sort of spot these particularly special young people at different places I would be at, and they'd come and talk to me. And I keep thinking they still are 17 or 18, but actually they're in their 50s now and have done amazingly well, every one of them. But anyway, that's another story altogether. So what I'd like to do now is I'd like to introduce the video of Never Just Your Daughters, which is so special. And we're going to share the screen. I'm going to mute myself so I don't make any banging noises while it's on. And I know that everybody here that's listening is going to have a real wonderful experience now in hearing this gorgeous song from the new album, Wild Medicine. So here we go.
Not a prisoner of mankind, only of his own desires. Watching the Father forever, did it bear repeating? Could he set her side as lives he threw in the fire? Secrets carried forever. No one saw it happen. Sometimes a rare human fall, sometimes the tide pulling through the water. When a feeling wants to break, when a feeling wants to break, when never just your daughters. Sometimes turn into the moon, sometimes a beast to the slaughter. When a feeling wants to break, then a feeling's gonna break. We're never just your daughters, never just your daughters. I asked the schoolboy within, has he played enough? Pencils and Play-Doh, do they know? Bells ring at her blessed feet. Actions in each moment start to scatter, a quake from the edge to the core. You stood there before me, adored me. I always questioned. Sometimes a prayer human form, sometimes a tide going through the water. When a feeling wants to break, when a feeling wants to break, we're never just your daughters. Sometimes the road to Babylon, sometimes the beast to the slaughter. When a feeling wants to break, then a feeling's gonna break. We're never just your daughters, never just your daughters. The scars of our mothers, the scars of another friend, and I've served my time for a crime that wasn't mine. Sometimes a bird in the sky, sometimes the power of heavy motor. When a feeling wants to break, then a feeling's gonna break. We're never just your daughters, never just your daughters.
That's a very, very powerful, very, very powerful narrative. Thank you so much. Amazing, absolutely amazing. I feel very emotional now.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just
Thank
beautiful.
you. I'm hugely. I feel two ways. I feel both really determined, but I also do at times feel just devastated because I'm so glad there's a narrative out there that the price is the lives of people, and the thought of the women and the people that have been lost. It's really devastating because it doesn't just affect that person's precious life, it's all of the families in the community, and that pain continues, that pain ricochets.
It does. It does, and we can all feel it in our hearts, and feel the loss for the families that have suffered from this terrible situation. We just have to all come together as human beings, as men and women together, to make sure this doesn't continue on, that we're in a safe space for men, for women, whatever your background, your color, your religion, your country, that this is a safe world, and it's a safe world for the children, and it's a safe world for the generations to come. As the Indigenous grandmothers say, the 7 generations to come, we have to change this world. And I do feel very strongly that as we come out of this extraordinary COVID lockdown globally, where the whole world out of the blue came to a halt, we can vision a new future. We can create a new beginning, that by staying in touch with each other and by changing the narrative. And the songwriters, such as yourself, are the poets. You are the seers. If, you know, in biblical terms, you know, it was the prophets. I see now as the songwriters, and that's where it's at. And in fact, there's a wonderful quote from Leonard Cohen about you, saying, calling you a pilgrim, deeply committed and highly trained on your own path to perfection. It's quite something coming from a perfectionist like him. A beautiful, beautiful quote. He also referred to your original first solo album, To the Bone, as flawless, uplifting, and utterly original. So what was it like working with him for 5 years and being on the road? I mean, of course, he's on such a pedestal for so many of us. And you were in such a close, you and Charlie were in such a close situation with him, and with the other backing singer and the band. So what was he? I imagine he was always wonderful. I'm sure he got tired.
He was incredible.
Yeah.
He was really funny. And I sometimes talk about him, he is, because I still feel him very present. For all of us, I think he really was a muse to many people in their lives. And he had this connection, this channel to the truth and to honesty for people struggling with, be it mental illness, be it challenges in life, negotiating the difficulties that we all face. He had this incredible empathy and care. He was very aware of everyone, all the crew, all the band. He was very connected. I think he knew, and I learned a lot, that it takes every single person on a crew and involved to make the show happen. And I love that he honoured each person and acknowledged them. Sometimes before we do sound check, he'd put some bergamot oil on our wrists, and there'd be a few of us, and he'd always really soak your wrist, so it's really, really, really dripping in the bergamot oil, which was lovely. And then I sometimes would put a bit on my third eye or on my throat, or just, he would create a sensory experience for you collaborating with him, whoever you were in his world. And that was such a thing to witness. Also, he was very helpful and kind to me when I had some time struggling on the road. I had some anxiety on stage, which didn't happen at the beginning of the tour. It was about 3 years in. And now, looking back, I recognize that I was strengthening my root, my grounding, which I know you, Lynne, have a very deep connection with your root. But for me, I was a little bit up there somewhere. So I really had to strengthen that muscle. And one day I got on the plane and he was sat in the exit row where he always liked to sit. And there was an area in the footwell. And I just slumped down in the footwell and I looked at him and he looked at me and he nodded as if he knew what I was thinking. And he said, you know, darling, when a triangle reaches up, it has to widen its base.
Beautiful.
Otherwise it falls over.
That's beautiful.
And that really struck me. And
of course, he was a Buddhist for so many years, and practicing Buddhist, and and you've extended since I've known you, and you've always been very spiritual. But I can see that side of yourself has really become more and more important and essential to who you are as a woman and as an artist.
Yes, I think so. And I think learning from other women like you and Karen and women in the musical community, my sister Charlie, my mum Mandy, my granny Angela, I think it's one of the beautiful things of getting older, to witness and learn and develop that relationship within yourself of looking out for yourself more.
So this is the point before your last song that I was going to ask if there were any questions. There's lots and lots of comments and wonderful things. And there is a question, and guess who it's from? It's from your dad.
Hey!
So hi, Graham. He said, he's Graham's Webb, wonderful Graham Webb, and Hattie's dad, who introduced us in the first place, said you've got some very amusing stories about Leonard, Hattie. Can you share one or two of those?
Yes. Gosh, so many. Well, when we would pull up to a new city, we'd land on the plane, we'd go on the bus, we'd arrive and then get settled in our hotel. And sometimes we'd meet for a drink in the evening or sit and do some meditation. And one evening, no one could find Leonard, and it turned out that he had gone to McDonald's to buy his favourite fillet of fish. He loved the fillet of fish. So that's where he was. He was at Mackie D's.
How funny.
He was at the Golden Arches.
You wouldn't think so. You'd think he'd be eating a bowl of brown rice somewhere with some veggies and being very cosmic.
He didn't eat a lot sometimes on the road, and Charlie, Sharon and I, being nurturers, we were aware of what he was eating. And then he had a lovely assistant called Kesvan who came on the road, and all of the wonderful wardrobe people really helped support as well in that department.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah, very special crew.
So this is our chance before we come to the last song. What next, though? I mean, I was actually, before I go to that, I've got some more questions.
Yeah.
So we've talked about Wild Medicine. We've talked about it coming out probably later in this later spring. I guess the closure of so many festivals means that perhaps you haven't got the opportunity to be out there as much as you would have been normally. But what are your plans apart from getting the album out? Where's your vision? Where are you going? Do you know? Do any of us know where we're going?
I'm not always sure where I'm going, and I have the hold the vision, trust the process written on my wall over here. I think one of the main things for me would be to get the album out, and that's why I've done these 8 weeks. I've done 8 Mondays in a row of releasing material or having interviews or playing some live songs from the album, just to lay some foundations and connect with people before I look to put the album out. And then Andrea Resche, who you mentioned earlier, we've written and recorded several songs together, so I'd love to get some of that out.
Yes.
And then my sister and I, Charlie, we have done some vocals for an artist called Wesley, who's in the Lumineers, and his producer, Simon Felice. We're going to be singing some backgrounds on his new album. So there's lots of things in the works. I think when I think about my life as a pie, I want to continue to focus on having a portion that's creative, a portion with friends and family, a portion with supporting others and holding space in some way, in whatever way people would like me to hold space, particularly with Frank Mullane at AFTA and the people there too. And then time also for learning new things. I'm thinking about perhaps I might go back to university at some point. I never went to university, so that's something.
No, me neither. I always fantasized about going back to university, but I don't think we've got time, Lottie.
No.
Lottie's my sister who's about to leave me and go to university, and I keep telling her, stay in the real world. No, Hattie, I don't think you and I have got time to go to university. I think
what would you study, Lynne?
Oh, I'd love to study philosophy, actually, and possibly a bit of anthropology. Oh, I can't even say it. Yes, I don't know. Philosophy, really, I think, would be for me. And some of the ancient writings and ancient history. I don't know. There's so many things that interest me, actually. Now you've asked me, I haven't thought about it. I'm going to start thinking about it. And maybe that's what I'm supposed to do, is go back to university. Anyway, we've got a lovely comment here from Frank Mullane, who says, this interview is so authentic. It's a real joy to witness. Thank you to me for being a fine interviewer, and for you, Hattie, for being an honest interviewee. So that's a real compliment. So thank you, Frank, for those words. And I think we're coming up to that very special moment for me. I said to to Hattie earlier that I must mute myself because otherwise I'll end up singing along with her. And I know we'll all be singing along to this particular song at home, but I would advise myself not to be singing along with Hattie's beautiful voice. No, I will be singing along, but I will not be putting it out for other people when you're singing it so beautifully. So it is a thrill, an absolute thrill, that you are now going to be singing this song, this particular song, live here on this show, and you're going to be playing the wonderful harp that Leonard gave you, and you know, my favorite song ever, Hallelujah. How can there be it? Oh, I feel crying even saying it. I start crying. So.
When I heard there was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? Well, it goes like this: the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffled key, composing hallelujah. So your faith was strong, but you needed proof. You saw her begging on the roof, her beauty and the moonlight overthrew you. Well, she tied you to her kitchen chair. She broke your throat, she cut your hair, and from your lips she drew the hallelujah. Been here before. I've seen this room and I've walked this floor. You know, I used to live alone before I knew you. And I've seen your flag on the marble arch, and our love is now a victory march. It's a cold and it's a very broken hallelujah. You let me know what's really going on below. But now you never really show it to me, do you? But remember when I moved in you, and the holy dove was moving too, and every breath we drew was hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Wow. What can I say? Such a beautiful way to end. Such a beautiful conversation with such a beautiful woman. Thank you so much, everybody. I know everybody's writing her. I really feel I've got to get off because I'm just going to cry my eyes out. It's so moving. And as somebody wrote down here, we really need this right now. We all need this right now. This beautiful music, this beautiful sound. Thank you so much, Hattie. It's been such a privilege. And we will see each other very, very soon. And I'm just going to thank you all for coming. Thank you all to the Seed Tribe for being here and your lovely comments. Thank you all for the people that are following on my Facebook and Hattie's Facebook and wherever else we are, YouTube and goodness knows where else. This will be up for a while. So if any of you want to spread the word to your friends, this has been a very, very special, beautiful conversation. Thank you so much. And love you so much. And we'll speak very soon. So God bless, and I'll say goodnight to everybody else as well. Have a wonderful evening, wonderful
Thank you
weekend.
for everything you do for people in this world, Lynne, blazing a trail. I'm in such gratitude and admiration of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. God bless. God bless everybody. Namaste.
Blessings, everybody. Thank you.